Hi, this is our four company that we choose in our report. To make it short and specific, Pan Malaysia Holding is a hospitality company that provides hotels in Malaysia. UPA is a medical equipment production that provides PPE in local market. Watson is a company running the stores and sells the goods such as clothing and shoes. Lotus FM is a food and beverage company that specializes in flour production.
This executive summary provides an overview of revenue recognition and disclosure practices in compliance with MFRS 15, revenue from contracts with customers for four selected companies. In accordance with MFRS 15, revenue is recognized when performance obligations are fulfilled, indicating that customers have obtained control over the products or services. The measurement of revenue considers factors such as transaction price, sales taxes, discounts, and other considerations specified in customer contracts. Since each company operates in a different industry, they face industry-specific issues related to revenue recognition. Besides, the companies are required to disclose relevant information related to revenue recognition, including the nature of goods or services, performance obligations, and significant judgment used in revenue recognition. In conclusion, the selected companies comply with MFRS 15 in recognizing and disclosing revenue from contracts with customers. Next are the definition, recognition, and measurement of the revenue. According to MFRS 15, revenue is defined as the inflow of economic benefits arising from the entity's ordinary activities. So, I can say that all four companies comply with MFRS 15 in terms of the definition of revenue. Pan Malaysia generates revenue by providing room accommodation, food and beverage to hotel guests. Pakistan Holdings Berhad recognizes revenue from the sale of clothing, accessories and other consumer goods. Lotus KFM Berhad derives revenue from its operations involving milling wheat flour and trading tobacco flour. UPA Corporation Berhad generates revenue through the sale of paper-based products, plastic and healthcare products. Regarding the recognition of revenue, I can say that all four companies adhere to MFRS 15, paragraph 31, which focus on the satisfaction of performance obligations and the transfer of control over a product or service to the customers. They recognize the revenue when performance obligations were satisfied and control over the assets was transferred to the customers. Control is considered transferred when the customer has the ability to direct the use of and obtain benefits from the goods or services. Next, as stated in MFRS 15, paragraph 47, revenue is measured when an entity expects to receive consideration in exchange for goods and services provided to customers. So, all four companies measure revenue based on the consideration specified in the contract customers, and also excluding the amounts collected on behalf of third parties. Overall, I can say that all four companies comply with MFRS 15 regarding revenue from contracts with customers.
Pan Malaysia Holdings Berhad has been significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in terms of its cash flow and financial performance. In support of the previous stated claim, the company's revenue declined from 6,097,000 in 2020 to RM 3,156,000 in 2021. The company's trade receivables from third parties, for instance, dropped from 172,000 in 2020 to 67,000 in 2021. This decrease shows that clients may have had financial hardships as a result of the pandemic, resulting in late payments or defaults. The company recorded an allowance for impairment losses of 53,000 in 2021, a reduction of 55.79% from the reserve for impairment losses in 2020. Therefore, as a solution, the group developed the anticipated loss rates based on the payment profiles of prior sales, taking into account in the changes in the customer payment profile as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the corresponding history credit losses, and then adjust for the qualitative and quantitative reasonable and supportable forward-looking information. And this made the company's trade receivable from third parties recover from 67,000 in 2021 to 127,000 in 2022, which was a significant increase of 189.55%. It was made quite evident that the pandemic has had significant influence of the company's financial performance. In conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic has a number of negative repercussions on the company, including financial difficulties, issues with liquidity, a rise in uncertainty, and probable issues with intercompany and related party balances. The decline in the trade receivables, other receivables, and refundable deposits, along with the recognition of the impairment losses, point to difficulty in collecting money from customers and probable losses as a result of their default. These factors caused the company's revenue and profitability to deteriorate. UPA Healthcare Products Berhad, a subsidiary of UPA Corporation Berhad, is entering the healthcare industry by manufacturing melt-blown, non-woven fabric, a crucial material used in the production of 3-ply masks and surgical face masks. The company received conditional approval from the Malaysian Investment Development Authority (MIDA) for manufacturing license and pioneer status for this activity. By addressing the shortage of melt-blown and non-woven fabric during COVID-19 pandemic, UPA aims to contribute to the fight against virus while expanding its existing plastic manufacturing operations. The project, estimated at RM 10 million, will be funded internally, and production is expected to commence by the end of November 2020 at UPA's facility in Sri Kembangan, Selangor. The maximum annual production capacity for melt-blown non-woven fabric is 600,000 kg, while for 3-ply mask and for a surgical face mask it is 86 million pieces in the first phase. Furthermore, even after the pandemic, melt-blown and non-woven fabric will remain essential in the medical and inflations industry. The company's decision to venture into the healthcare products aligns with the increasing demand for personal protective equipment (PPE) observed across various companies during COVID-19 pandemic. This strategic move boosted UPS Corporation revenue in healthcare products from RM 236,000 in 2020 to RM 2,715,000 in 2021.
In retail industry, the issue when recognize revenue is determine its satisfaction on performance obligation. The company should recognize every component of revenue either is satisfied over time or at a point in time. For example, sales of goods should recognize at a point in time, while consultancy fee should recognize over the time. So when this happens, the company face the problem when have the different timing of performance obligation, which lead into the less comparable. In COVID-19 overview, our sample Parks and Berhad have incremented in revenue from 3 billion to 4 billion into 2021. But the issue is the range of the financial report period, more than 12 months, which is 18 months. It's very incomparable to compare between others company. In general, retail industry also has suffered the pandemic's impact in terms of operation of the stores during the movement control order. In food and beverage industry, they have issue in determining the transaction price, where they need to consider the variable consideration. For example, they need to consider the discount they need to give for multiple purchasing and also estimation of refund for damaged goods. So the company should concern about how to apply the appropriate approach to estimate the amount, consideration, discount, and variable consideration. Secondly, COVID-19 overview, our sample lotus KFM have decreased in revenue from 55 million to 51.7 million in 2021. The reason behind this is because of inflation cost of raw material, which is global wheats, and also the cost of sea freight.
It is stated in MFRS 15, paragraph 14, that entity must disaggregate its revenue recognized from contract with customer into different categories that show nature, amount, timing, and uncertainty of revenue and cash flow affected by economic factor. So all of our company fulfill the disclosure requirement. So for the Lotus, KF and Berhad, they disaggregate their revenue by pattern category such as timing of revenue recognition and geographical market. So for the UPA Corporation Berhad, they disaggregate their revenue into 4 categories, which are paper-based product, plastic product, machine trading, and healthcare product. So for the Pakistan Berhad, they disaggregate their revenue into 2 segments, which is the first segment is retailing that differs by country like Malaysia, China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. The second segment is order that contains credit service, food and beverage business, and investment holding. So for the Pan Malaysia Holding Berhad, they disaggregate their revenue into 3 segments, which is hotel and hotel operation, stockbroking, and investment holding. 3 of the company disaggregate their revenue that show the timing for revenue recognition, while the other one company did not mention its timing for revenue recognition. So for Pakistan Berhad and UPA Corporation Berhad, the timing for revenue recognition is at a point in time or over time. While the Lotus KFM Berhad timing for revenue recognition is at a point in time. While the PAM Malaysia Holding Berhad did not mention their timing for revenue recognition, either is at a point in time or over time.
Today, I'll be presenting on performance obligation. Pakistan Berhad Holding identified its loyalty program as a separate performance obligation, considering it as a material rights to provide to customer. It allocates consideration received from sales of goods to both goods sold and anticipation redemption of points. Revenue is recognized when points are redeemed, expired, or deemed non-redeemable. UPA Corporation Berhad, on the other hand, recognizes revenue based on distinct performance obligation and when the customer obtains control of the goods or service. Contract modifications are assessed to determine if they create separate new contracts, terminate existing contracts and create new ones, or form a part of existing contract. At Pan Malaysia Holdings, each of these services represent a separate performance obligation and the price charged to guests reflect their individual selling price. These obligations are fulfilled over time in case of room rentals that extend beyond the guest stays, and revenue is recognized at a specific point in time for other goods or services when they are delivered or provided to the guest. At Lotus KFM, revenue for customer contract is measured based on expectation consideration to be received by the company itself. If a contract includes multiple performance obligations, the consideration is allocated to each obligation based on the relative standalone selling price of the goods or service promised.